Salofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up.
Very strong support from the people, but he also has this blood link to the royal family.
Could a cousin of Tonga's king become the new PM? Also,
the one-size-fits-all approach to addressing problems and issues will work, but it also won't work for lots of people as well.
A leading Pacific scientist will take up a big role at Otago University, and Pacific clerks and speakers visit New Zealand's Parliament. Who will replace Huagavameiliku Siasi Sovaleni as Prime Minister of Tonga? Mr. Sovaleni resigned to forestall a vote of no confidence amid reports that the palace office had noble MPs in his cabinet to withdraw their backing. It's a continuation of a year-long battle with King Tupou VI, who let it be known he wanted his appointees to hold key portfolios on foreign affairs and defence. Our Tonga correspondent Kalafi Moala spoke with Don Wiseman about likely candidates to replace Mr. Sovaleni, including a first cousin of the king. But first he talked about the motivations for the no-confidence vote in the first place.
There's a couple of, I think, key details. One is that the Prime Minister really felt there was nothing wrong that he did that earned a vote of no confidence. And he was just so surprised that nobody approached him personally. And even if there was some strained relationship with the palace office, there was no communication of why the king would lose confidence at all. And so he seemed in his communication to say, wow, he was just like ambushed and didn't know what wrong he had done or how he had broken the law.
His own side didn't back him either.
No, the nobles. Remember, there were 3 nobles on his cabinet, and all 3 resigned. And the reason that has been given was the fact that the king had expressed displeasure and wanted them to basically take a neutral position. And the fact that they have resigned 3 of them, that means that he doesn't have the numbers to support him in a vote of no confidence.
This is not the first time, of course, that the palace office has had some sort of, or has appeared to have some sort of interference in the government. What's the feeling on the streets about this? Because this is something that was expected to disappear once Tonga got a little bit more democracy back in 2010.
That's correct. The fact the Prime Minister had to resign, the fact that the vote of no confidence didn't have anything substantial to call for him to be ousted, and the word on the street, the people, it seems to backlash on the existing establishment, particularly on the royal family, on the nobility. I think Mr. Sovaleni has gotten a lot more sympathy right now than previously. So it's really very, very quite significant. More people are supporting him. More people are questioning the communication or the mood that's coming in from the palace office.
What about the regular MPs, the commoner MPs, the elected MPs in Parliament? They're tackling here a character who seems to have had developing popularity just in the past 6 months or so as he assumed control of the Pacific Islands Forum and things like this.
Yeah, definitely. The hosting of the Pacific Forum here was deemed to be a great success, and the fact that he chairs the Pacific Forum, at least for the year, and was very, very popular among the Pacific Islands. The other thing, too, he did remember the resilience fund that they're going to set up. It's going to be hosted in Tonga and based in Tonga. So that's another major benefit for Tonga. There's just a number of different things. The Anti-Corruption Commissioner started during this administration. Ombudsman readjusted. So a number of great achievements and accomplishments during this administration compared with previous administrations. So the word on the street is the fact that there was no real reason other than just pure jealousy, and a number of people's representatives that are wanting to become prime ministers, and that the fact that the nobles were unable to stand together in support on what is right. that gave way to a very divided people's representatives.
All right, so in a week's time we'll hear, I think, of the people who have been nominated. Who are the likely candidates to replace Sovaleni?
Well, the likely one, of course, is the one that led the vote of no confidence draft, and that is Isaac Eke. Eke is a Tonga Tapu representative, and he has been in politics for quite a while. He was the Minister of Finance of Achilles Pohira when the government came in 2014. So he definitely would be number one as a possible candidate for Prime Minister. The other one, which is someone who is a strong supporter of the Prime Minister who just resigned, is David Tapuloka. David Tapuloka is an interesting situation there because he not only is the people's representative for one of the biggest constituents in Tonga, he is also the first cousin of the king. So he's the one person that seems to have not only very strong support from the people, but he also has this blood link to the royal family. And not only that, he's also a man with great integrity. When he got voted in, he gave a very strong indication he doesn't want to be a minister, he doesn't want to be involved in horse trading and all of that, and he would refuse any offer of a minister to government. So now, he is the person that is another likely candidate December 24th.
The University of Otago has appointed its first ever Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Pacific, a new role that will support the achievement and success of Pacific researchers, teachers and students. Associate Professor Dr. Diane Sikapautonu will begin her new role next year. An award-winning research scientist, Dr. Sikapautonu has been recognised for her engagement efforts in New Zealand and the Pacific region, becoming one of the leading scientific voices during the COVID-19 pandemic. I caught up with Dr. Diane Sikapautonu and began by asking her how she reacted when she found out the news.
Malole le Susana, and thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today. With respect to the reaction, I think it would be fair to say that there were a number of different reactions, and that in my particular case, these ranged from being totally shocked to totally excited, and then lots in between. And that, and it would be fair to say also that there were some immediate responses, and then others that took a little bit longer to come through. And perhaps maybe if there was one thing that I could share that underpinned all of these reactions, it would be the magnitude of trust that has been placed in me as a Pacifica leader. And Susana, I know that you will understand this, as will all our Pacifica listeners and our non-Pacifica listeners, that we're always looking for opportunities to be of service and to use the skills that we have to contribute in some way to society in a way that's constructive. Whether this be looking to serve our communities, our colleagues around us, those we hold responsibilities for. And so the trust factor for me was highly significant. And so signaling that a lot of people have put their trust in me is something that I don't take lightly at all.
So, talk me through about your educational journey. Like, when did you realize that was your calling?
Well, Susanna, that's a really big question. And perhaps maybe if I start by just providing a bit of context for your listeners. My parents left Tonga in the 1960s to come here and settle in Aotearoa, New Zealand. My father used to play rugby for Tonga. My mother was a secretary, and they essentially gave up everything that they had to relocate and come here to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and then start a family. And what was really important to my parents was to ensure that my brother and I would have access to opportunities that they never did. And this also included a focus on a very strong focus on education. So they gave up a lot and sacrificed a lot to ensure that my brother and I would be able to have the benefit across a number of different areas. And so as a result of their hard work and sacrifice, I became the first in my family to attend, at the time, to attend university. I became the first in my family to gain a degree. I became the first in my family to be awarded a PhD. I was also the first in my family to work at a university, and also now the first in my family to have the title professor anywhere near their name. And so Susanna, there is a lot for me to be grateful for, but also there is a lot to acknowledge as well. So in other words, my parents sacrificed a lot to ensure that I could benefit from the open doors that were available. And so I'm a New Zealand-born Tongan. My father comes from Vava'o, and my mother comes from Hawaii. I'm a very proud member of the Pacific community, and so my mother's name is Desa Sika. My father's name was Devita Sika. And my husband is Samoan. He's Samoan Niuean. So, and we have one daughter, Alicia. So she's a fruit salad. And my husband's name is Reno. And over the years, my focus has been on, as mentioned before, trying to use the skill set that I have to be of service and to contribute and to give back in whatever ways that are possible.
Obviously, you bring a wealth of experience and you're highly capable you're well suited for this role. But is there any part of you that feels pressured to deliver?
Really good question, Susanna. So Susanna, thank you for the question. And perhaps maybe I just might rephrase the question, if that's okay, in that it's not so much that I feel pressured to deliver, but rather that I feel privileged in having the opportunity to be able to support delivery for us as Pacific, and to help drive and amplify the actions and activities that are needed to meet our strategic and growth goals, whether they be for our universities and institutions or for our communities, our peoples here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and into the Pacific region. So there's a very famous quote by Albert Einstein, and he once said that those who have the privilege to know have the duty to act. And so, and I recognize that that is a quote that will resonate with many people. And Susanna, there's also another quote that I hold very close. And this is, even though I'm Tongan, this is a Samoan quote that I really admire and I hold on to. And this is one that helps summarize my approach to work, but also to leadership. And it's the Samoan proverb, ole ala ile pule ole tautua. Please forgive my pronunciation, but as we know, translates to the pathway to leadership is through service. And so for me, it is a tremendous honor to have received this appointment. And I do acknowledge the hard work and the commitment and also the advocacy of many others who've gone before and who laid very important foundations to help enable such a significant leadership role to be instituted for the very first time here in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Earlier on in our talanoa, you touched on equity, and judging from what you've told me so far, I know it's something that you're actively promoting or championing. Why is equity still important to promote despite the current conversations that initiatives should be needs-based?
Equity-based approaches take into account the respective differences for various groups and communities that are there. And what we know and what the evidence shows is that when we take into account these differences that are there already, that we are likely to be more successful at addressing inequities, whether these be across the health setting or the education setting or other settings. So the one-size-fits-all approach to addressing problems and issues will work for lots of people, but it also won't work for lots of people as well. So if we want to address some of these gaps and close some of them, we've actually got to look at what it is that we're doing and how we're going about doing what's being done. And so having more targeted and more tailored approaches for solutions that are co-designed, i.e. working together with our communities to address issues that are in our communities, is actually likely to be more helpful and successful for everybody involved. So connecting with our people is really important, co-designing, working together and coming up with solutions over here that we want to implement over there, but rather working together and co-designing solutions is key moving forward.
The New Zealand Parliament hosts all sorts of diplomatic conferences, meetings, seminars, workshops and soirees. Many attendees are government officials or MPs meeting with their overseas counterparts or diplomats from various countries. One way to gauge which dignitaries are in Wellington is by looking at the flags displayed on Parliament's forecourt. 12 Pacific flags were recently raised for Tahuna Atara, Pacific Speakers, Presiding Officers and Clerks Conference. RNZ's The House reporter Lewis Collins has more.
Kia ora, nā mai ki te whare. Welcome to The House, ko Louis Collins aho. In the last few days of November, there were 12 flags from around the Pacific hoisted up on Parliament's forecourt. This was to mark the presence of presiding officers, in other words, speakers and their deputies and assistants from around Oceania who were here in Wellington for a professional development conference run by New Zealand's Parliament. The conference was facilitated under the Taia program, which since 2019 has overseen formalised support to Pacific parliaments. Now, this support can be anything from helping Pacific lawmakers craft more effective bills, working with Hansard counterparts to enhance their work, or, like in November, offer professional development to presiding officers. I spoke to Parliament's Interparliamentary Relations Lead to find out more about the program.
My name is Amber Walters, and I am the Interparliamentary Relations Team Lead.
Now, Interparliamentary Relations, that's separate from MFAT, Foreign Relations, Foreign Affairs.
Okay, so Interparliamentary Relations look after New Zealand Parliament's relationship with all parliaments in the world. We also support the Speaker's international engagement, and we're different from Ministry of Foreign Affairs in that we look after international relations for the legislature. But we always collaborate on many foreign policy issues if that comes into the equation by talking to MFAT.
And this event is part of the Taia program. Do you want to just explain to listeners what the Taia program is?
Yes, the Taia program, or Stronger Pacific Parliaments, is part of a contract that we are in with Ministry of Foreign Affairs to deliver Stronger Pacific Parliaments and support the parliaments of the Pacific.
And it's been since 2019, is it correct? The Taia program?
It was in existence before that, but formalised in 2019 as the Taia program, or the Pacific Parliamentary Support Program.
And what results have you seen since then?
It's been another provider. There's some big providers for Pacific Parliamentary Support like UNDP. We can offer specific technical assistance and expertise in some areas. So whether that's with floating budget officers, we can send some of our library research people from the New Zealand Parliamentary Library to those places to assist them in if they have a floating budget. So I know that's happened with Fiji and Kiribati.
So it's not just the MPs doing diplomacy, it's parliamentary staff.
It's parliamentary staff as well, yes, yeah.
I also spoke to one of the presiding officers in attendance, the Speaker, or what they call the President of New Caledonia's Congress.
Bonjour, Velma Farao, Présidente du Congrès de la Nouvelle-Calédonie.
What sort of benefit do these events have for Pacific legislatures and New Caledonians in particular?
C'est vraiment un honneur de participer à ce genre de conférence.
So these kind of events are very important for us to develop and strengthen our bonds and regional cooperation. And for New Zealand, for New Caledonia, this is a great opportunity to get feedback on various experiences that have been implemented in other countries: Tuvalu, Samoa, Tonga, Niue, Cook Islands, and French Polynesia, with all our brother countries, and to see how decision making happens at a parliament level in all these countries. So we would like to thank the New Zealand Parliament for welcoming us here today, because it's especially important for me as the first woman president in the New Caledonian Congress.
What's your experience been so far in what has historically been in the Pacific a male-dominated space?
So in my humble experience, I've only been an MP for 5 years now, so there's only so much I can say, but being elected 3 months ago at the head as the chair of the New Caledonian Congress was a big surprise. So I'm extremely proud and honored. And as I mentioned in my inaugural address, I dedicated this election to all the women and little girls around the country and in the world, encouraging them to believe in their dreams. It was the first time for us, and New Caledonia, has a strong wealth of cultures, different cultures. I myself, I've got a Wallisian background, and I particularly appreciated some of the presentation this morning, the one from Tuvalu, first and foremost, because they're clearly trying to work on diversity and equality between men and women. So I hope that Pacific countries will continue to work towards this, because I firmly believe that women can bring a new perspective to policies, a more benevolent take on politics.
What challenges do you think Pacific legislatures face in the coming future?
During our discussion this morning, one subject that came back a lot was the relationships between parliaments and governments. Very often we realize that we have a similar problem, which how do we exchange information and how do we implement our question times. And this is a recurring problem that we have seen. And this morning we discussed about how each country goes about dealing with this particular issue. In New Caledonia, one thing I've been working on is improving the cooperation between the legislative body, which is the Congress that I'm chairing, and the government, which is the executive part of power. And we want to work together to make it more efficient.
That was a translator speaking for Velma Filiul, President of New Caledonia's Congress.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā sui fua.